Well, hello, my name is Dr. Dan Grissom. I'm an assistant professor at Azusa Pacific University in the computer science department. And today I'm just going to give a brief video tutorial on how to kind of just get started with Java programming. Specifically, we're going to walk you through how to install the Eclipse Integrated Development Environment, IDE for short, and the Java Development Kit, which is required by Eclipse, and JDK for short for the Java Development Kit. This specific tutorial is going to be done on a brand new, fresh copy of Windows 10. So I figure it's September of 2015 at the time of recording this. Most everyone that's taking a new programming class is probably going to have Windows 10 installed on their machines, or they're going to have a Mac with Mac OS X on it. If that is the case for you, you should be seeing a pop-up link on this video, which kind of takes you to another video that someone else made that's a pretty good walkthrough for how to install Eclipse and the JDK on your Mac. Okay, and then if you are in the Mac, rejoin us later and I'll walk you through how to, later on in the video at the very end, I'll walk you through how to basically create your first project. Okay, but for those of us who are on Windows, let's get started. So if an integrated development environment is basically a program that helps us create programs. Okay, specifically we're working with Java, so we're going to look at Java integrated development environments. If I open up a Google browser and just type in Java IDE and click on the first link, we'll see a link of a number of different IDEs out there. You can see this specific page brings up about 11. The top three ones, NetBeans, Eclipse, and IntelliJ, are probably some of the most popular that are out there right now. NetBeans is kind of an old school, one of the earlier Java IDEs out there. IntelliJ is one of the newer ones out there. So IntelliJ has a lot of new great features. However, despite that, we're going to use Eclipse. Eclipse is also very feature-rich. Eclipse has been around for a while. It's very mature and it's very well supported. I've used Eclipse to write C++ code, Python code, all kinds of stuff. And some of that's true of other IDEs as well. But just in my experience, I've found that if I'm ever doing a new language or some kind of specialty project, they'll have little plugins that will work in Eclipse. And so if you've taken the time to learn Eclipse with Java, the chances are you're going to minimize the amount of time you're going to need to relearn a new IDE program in the future. Eclipse is great. There's probably philosophical arguments to use it and to not use it, but for all practical purposes, it is a great IDE, and it's the one we're going to use for this class. So I'll leave that up there for now. You can see Mars is the current version. We're actually going to download it through another website, which makes it just a tad bit easier and more reliable. So I'm going to go to, if you open up your browser, to www.ninite.com, N-I-N-I-T-E. You'll see a web page load up that has basically a bunch of check boxes with different programs beside it. So if you've never been to this website, it's a really neat website. It basically allows you, this is especially useful if you have a brand new computer or you just reformatted your machine and have a fresh copy of Windows. It essentially allows you to check all the, basically out of all these commonly used programs, it allows you to just check it and to download one installer, which will automatically give you the latest version of the program, as well as it'll kind of check all the do not install toolbar check boxes that come in some of these programs. So this is really nice. I could actually download an installer and give it directly to you, and you would then click on that installer and it would go out and download Eclipse and the Java Development Kit or whatever else we're going to focus on. So with this tutorial, we are going to focus over on this column over here, the developer tools. So we want, obviously, Eclipse. So I want to go ahead and check that. If I hover over, it'll show you which version, version 4.5. And 4.5 is that Mars. This is kind of the special code, more popular name Mars for, 4.5. And you'll also notice that it says requires Java. So to run Eclipse, we actually need Java installed on our machine. And to write code, and this is right here, Java 8 runtime. But to actually write code, we need what's called the JDK, the Java Development Kit. So the Java Development Kit actually contains the Java runtime environment, the JRE. Don't get too confused there. The JDK is the biggest, baddest thing. It has everything involved. So I'm going to click this 64-bit version right here. It's 2015. Almost everyone's going to have 64-bit processors and 64-bit operating systems, whether you're using Mac or Windows. If not, this appears to be the 32-bit version that you can give a try, but I would go ahead, just click the 64-bit version and Eclipse, and go ahead and click the installer. So again, this is going to go and grab, right now I'm just downloading it. Once it's downloaded, I can run it. And the program is now basically going to go out and grab the latest versions of Eclipse. It's going to download and install that, and it's going to download and install the latest version of the JDK, which happens to be 8 point something at the moment. So we'll wait for this to download. So just while we're waiting for it to download and install, a little background on the JDK. So the JDK and the JRE, the Java Runtime Environment, what I'm downloading and installing right now, basically contains a bunch of kind of just files for Java, but what we would call a library. So think about when you go to a physical library. There's a bunch of books of information that we don't really know, right? We don't really have this knowledge in our minds, but we could go and open up these books and we could learn about things and then essentially use that knowledge to our advantage. That way we don't have to do the research to figure out that knowledge on our own. It's just kind of available for us to consume. So this JDK is very similar. The JDK contains a bunch of already written code and libraries and all kinds of stuff that essentially we can just reuse. So so essentially this is kind of just the background stuff that we need to not only run Java programs but to write our own. So right now it's installing the JDK. I'll just let this run for a second, and we'll catch back up when it's done. All right, there we go. So we're done with that. So you'll notice, the first thing you'll notice is that it just created this Eclipse icon on our desktop. So if you want to know kind of where it installed all these files, just open up this PC, go into probably your C drive, and you'll notice that there is now an Eclipse folder. If you open it up, you'll see the actual Eclipse executable in there. Okay, so we can go ahead and double click this Eclipse program. You'll see it gives you the version of Eclipse, so Mars, which is 4.5. If you run this installer and you watch this tutorial and you run the 99 installer in a few years, you will get for sure a different version of Eclipse. Alright, so the first thing that pops up is the workspace launcher. Okay, if you don't see the workspace launcher, and instead you see some kind of error message talking about Java needs to be installed or something about Java in an error, essentially what that means is that other thing, the JDK, was not properly installed. You have to install the JDK before you try to run Eclipse. So if you're doing this manually and you download Eclipse first and then you try to run it before installing the JDK, you are going to get issues. Alright, so what it's asking you now, the very first thing it asks you is the workspace. So essentially this is saying, where do I want to store all of my Java programming files? So I always like to, and what I would recommend is just creating your own folder at this point. So I would go to, for instance, this PC, C drive, and I always like to just create something right in the C drive. So I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it Code Repository. Okay. So I like to, when possible, leave out the spaces because some some programs and things like that have trouble reading the space. It should be fine, but just a little thing. So I'm going to call this code repository. So this is just some repository, some folder where I'm going to keep all of my code for all the different projects I'm doing. So if I open it up, obviously there's nothing in there yet. I just created it. So I'll just kind of move this up in the corner. And now I'm going to go and browse to this directory I just created. So this PC, C drive, and then code repository. So click OK, and then click OK again. And at this point, you'll see it's creating stuff in this code repository folder that we have. It created this metadata folder, which is just kind of some background stuff for Eclipse. Okay, I'm going to kind of leave this up so we can kind of see what's happening in the background. So the first thing that happens is it brings up this welcome screen. I'm just going to close this. And your Eclipse, if you've never run it before, should look a little something like this. Okay, one of the main things is this Package Explorer on the left. So if you don't have the Package Explorer for some reason, you can always get it back by clicking Window, Show View, and then Package Explorer, and it will basically kind of redisplay this Package Explorer. So in the Package Explorer, I want to just go ahead and right-click and then click New Java Project. Okay, I'm going to give this project a name. We'll just go ahead and call it Hello World. We'll just kind of do the typical first program. And then everything else I should just be able to leave blank. You see it's going to create a new folder in code repository / hello world. It's going to create that folder. It's going to use our Java runtime environment, so on and so forth. So go ahead and just click finish. Should be good. And you'll see it does do that. It creates hello world. It has all these other folders in there as well. Okay. And if I go back to my Package Explorer, I click this little arrow. It's going to kind of show me what else is in there. So you'll see this source directory. Again, over here, if I go into the source directory, you'll see there's nothing there now. I want to basically create what's called a new class. Okay, so at this point, I don't want you to worry about what a class is or what all this stuff means. You just want to kind of get you set up to make sure that you have your environment set up. Now, the rest, we'll talk about classes in lecture and in lab. But for now, just kind of make sure that everything is working as you see in the video. So I'm going to say, I'm going to right-click on source, and then I'm going to click New Class. Okay, and I can call this class and give it the name whatever I want. I'm just going to call it my class. Okay, maybe my first class. Okay, my first class. And then I'm going to go and check public static void main. Okay, so again, don't worry about what this means. Just go ahead and click it for now and click finish. You'll see that it added this my first class Java, this default package in the source directory. And then over in my file system, you can see it also created this .java file. Okay, so what I'm going to do is essentially I am going to just write a single line of code. Okay, I'm going to write a single line of code, and you'll start to see what the IDE does. You'll see that it actually highlighted these certain words purple, while some are black, some are bolded, and some are not. And then watch this. When I start typing, I'll say system dot, and when I do that, it actually starts to give me a bunch of suggestions. So as I type, it kind of narrows it down, and it kind of just gives me recommendations. Okay, so I can use this to help myself program, so I don't have to remember quite as much. So it's a really nice feature. So I'm just going to type in hello world. Okay. And this is my first program. It's just one line of code. Okay, so now that I have written my first program, I need to try and run my first program. Okay, so if I click right here, I'm going to make this full screen so we can see it. This little run play button, I just simply click it, and it's going to actually pop up down here with this console. This wasn't here before. And this is essentially the output of my program. So you can see it says hello world. If I go ahead and add some exclamations and I try and run again, the first time we do this, it's actually going to show up. See, what happened was I changed the program, and notice it added this star. This means that I have changed the program since I've last saved it. I've changed this file since I've last saved it. So what it's doing is it's saying, hey, you actually changed the program. Did you mean to save it before trying to run it? And so if I just click this button, check this box, always save resource, essentially what's going to happen is every time I make a change, it's going to automatically save it before I try and run it. That way I ensure that I'm getting the most recent version. of my program being run. So I would recommend checking this. You only have to do it once. Hello world. You can see if I add a whole bunch, now it's going to automatically save it and run it. Okay. All right. So congratulations, you've successfully installed Eclipse in the Java Development Kit. You have created your first project in your first class, and you've also run your first Hello World program. We'll leave it at that for now. Thank you, and have a great day.